Kurt Russell has lived most of his life in front of cameras, yet somehow managed to keep the most important truths hidden in plain sight. For decades, Hollywood whispered about him. Why he walked away from certain roles, why he refused the traditional celebrity path, why he stayed silent while rumors followed him year after year. Some said he was difficult. Others claimed he didn't need the industry. Many believed he was hiding something bigger than anyone realized. At 74, the speculation no longer sounds like gossip, it sounds like a reckoning. The choices Kurt Russell never explained, and the moments where silence spoke louder than any interview. Kurt Russell didn't arrive in Hollywood chasing fame. Hollywood found him before he had a chance to decide who he wanted to be. Born into an entertainment family, he was exposed to sets, studios, and schedules at an age when most children were still learning who they were. By the time audiences recognized his face, Russell was already a professional, trained to show up, hit his marks, and deliver lines on command. Behind the scenes, though, the experience was far less glamorous. The pressure to perform, to stay marketable, and to remain obedient shaped his earliest view of the industry. Adults made decisions for him, contracts dictated his future, and success came with expectations that left little room for rebellion. Even then, those close to him noticed something unusual. He wasn't impressed by fame, and he didn't trust it either. That early exposure planted the seed of skepticism that would later define his career. While the public saw a rising star, Kurt Russell was already learning how quickly Hollywood could take control of a life if you let it. When Kurt Russell became one of Disney's most recognizable young faces, it looked like the perfect setup for a lifelong studio-backed career. Inside the industry, however, the arrangement felt more like a cage than an opportunity. Disney had an image, a formula, and a clear idea of what they wanted Russell to represent. As he grew older, the roles no longer matched the person he was becoming. Turning away from that system shocked executives and confused audiences, instantly triggering rumors. Some claimed he was ungrateful. Others said he was difficult, reckless, or sabotaging his own future. What most people didn't understand was that the decision wasn't impulsive, it was deliberate. Russell wanted control over his choices, even if that meant disappearing for a while. Walking away from Disney wasn't just about roles, it was about refusing to be owned. That exit became one of the earliest myths surrounding him, feeding the narrative that he was unpredictable and unwilling to play the game the way Hollywood demanded. As Kurt Russell re-emerged outside the Disney machine, a new label followed him, hard to work with. It was a quiet accusation, rarely stated outright, but repeated often enough to stick. Directors and producers whispered that he asked too many questions, pushed back on decisions, and refused to blindly follow studio expectations. In an industry built on compliance, independence often gets mistaken for arrogance. Russell never publicly fought the narrative. He didn't give angry interviews or attempt to correct the record. Instead, he worked selectively, choosing projects that aligned with his instincts rather than chasing prestige or approval. That silence allowed the rumors to grow, but it also protected him. While others burned out trying to please everyone, Russell stayed steady, avoiding public meltdowns and tabloid scandals. What many mistook for attitude was actually boundaries. By the time audiences realized his consistency wasn't accidental, the reputation was already cemented, but so was his freedom. The turning point in Kurt Russell's career did not come from desperation or reinvention, it came from alignment. After stepping away from the tightly controlled studio system, he began gravitating toward filmmakers who valued instinct over obedience. These collaborations weren't just professional opportunities, they were statements. For the first time, Russell was being trusted to shape characters rather than simply perform them. This shift exposed a version of him audiences hadn't fully seen before. Confident, grounded, and unconcerned with pleasing everyone. Critics who once questioned whether he could survive outside the Disney image were forced to reconsider. Yet even this success generated rumors. Some claimed he needed the right director to function. Others argued he had been rescued from irrelevance. Russell never corrected those assumptions. He knew the truth was simpler. He had always been capable, but now he was working in environments that didn't require him to shrink. This period proved that his earlier resistance wasn't immaturity, it was patience. He hadn't been avoiding growth, he had been waiting for respect. As Kurt Russell's image evolved, so did the speculation surrounding him. Hollywood struggled to categorize him. He didn't present himself as polished or refined, nor did he chase the kind of charm traditionally associated with leading men. Instead, he embraced rough edges, quiet confidence, and a refusal to explain himself. That discomfort translated into rumors about his masculinity, temperament, and even his beliefs. Some mistook his self-assurance for arrogance. Others interpreted his lack of performative vulnerability as emotional distance. Russell understood that Hollywood often rewards exaggeration, and he refused to exaggerate who he was. He didn't reshape himself to match trends or soften his image to ease public consumption. That resistance unsettled an industry built on predictability. Rather than chase approval, he leaned into authenticity, even when it meant being misunderstood. Over time, that refusal became a defining strength. The rumors never fully stopped, but neither did his credibility. Kurt Russell's relationship with Goldie Hawn became one of the most analyzed partnerships in Hollywood history, largely because it defied expectations. From the outside, their bond looked stable, affectionate, and deeply rooted. Yet it contradicted a core Hollywood tradition. They never married. That single fact sparked decades of speculation. Tabloids questioned commitment, predicted collapse, and searched endlessly for hidden fractures. Russell and Hawn never fed the narrative. They didn't defend their choice or turn it into a public statement. They simply lived it. For Russell, the absence of a wedding wasn't a rejection of commitment, it was a redefinition of it. He believed partnership was proven through consistency, not ceremony. Hollywood, accustomed to using relationships as branding tools, struggled to accept that explanation. The longer their relationship lasted, the louder the silence became. What began as gossip eventually transformed into quiet proof that their way worked, even without validation. The question of why Kurt Russell never married became so persistent that it evolved into a symbol of his entire philosophy. To many, it represented nonconformity. To others, defiance. To Russell, it was simply choice. He understood that once the public fixates on a question, no answer ever truly satisfies it. Explaining himself would have only invited more scrutiny, more speculation, and more intrusion. So he chose not to. That decision reflected a deeper pattern in his life. He didn't live to be understood by strangers. He lived according to principles that made sense to him and those closest to him. Over time, the rumors lost urgency. The relationship endured. And the absence of a traditional explanation became the explanation itself. By his 70s, what once seemed unconventional no longer looked risky, it looked intentional, steady, and quietly unshakable. As Kurt Russell moved deeper into adulthood, the label anti-Hollywood followed him with increasing intensity. It wasn't something he ever claimed for himself, yet it became a convenient explanation for people who didn't understand his choices. He wasn't hostile toward the industry, but he was deeply wary of its expectations. Award seasons, endless press tours, calculated friendships, and public positioning never interested him. Russell saw how quickly admiration could turn into obligation, and how easily personal identity could be replaced by a marketable version of oneself. Instead of chasing constant relevance, he chose distance. That distance confused people. In Hollywood, absence is often interpreted as rejection or failure. Rumors formed that he had grown bitter, disillusioned, or disconnected. None of it was true. Russell continued working, just not obsessively. He treated acting as a profession, not a lifestyle. By refusing to center his entire existence around visibility, he quietly challenged the industry's most unspoken rule, that fame must always be fed. His restraint wasn't rebellion for attention, it was self-preservation. Few things generate more speculation in Hollywood than the roles an actor turns down, and Kurt Russell's career became surrounded by what-if narratives. Stories circulated about iconic films he allegedly passed on, each rumor framed as a missed opportunity or a critical error. To outsiders, rejecting major roles seemed reckless. To Russell, it was a matter of alignment. He never chose projects based solely on box office potential or prestige. Scripts represented months, or years, of commitment, time away from family, and immersion in environments he didn't always trust. Some roles required total surrender to the Hollywood machine, non-stop promotion, personal exposure, and long-term image shaping. Russell had no interest in that trade-off. He later acknowledged that saying no was often harder than saying yes, especially when surrounded by voices insisting he would regret it. Yet those refusals protected something more valuable than momentum: control. The rumors painted him as careless. In truth, he was deliberate, choosing longevity over short-term triumph. There were periods when Kurt Russell seemed to disappear entirely, and those absences became fertile ground for speculation. Fans worried. Industry watchers speculated. Tabloids filled the silence with theories: health problems, career decline, secret conflicts, or quiet exile from Hollywood's inner circles. Russell never corrected those assumptions. He didn't announce breaks or stage dramatic returns. The truth was far less sensational. During those quieter stretches, he was living fully outside the spotlight, focusing on family, personal interests, and a life not dictated by production schedules. He didn't view constant work as proof of relevance. Instead, he believed stepping away allowed him to return with clarity rather than exhaustion. Each time he reappeared, it was on his terms, in roles he actually wanted to play. The industry had not abandoned him, he had simply chosen not to be always available. Those gaps weren't signs of retreat, they were evidence of choice. With distance and absence came financial rumors, a predictable consequence in an industry obsessed with output. When actors aren't constantly visible, assumptions quickly turn to money. Some claimed Kurt Russell had mismanaged his earnings. Others suggested he needed work but couldn't secure it. The reality contradicted every rumor. Russell approached finances the same way he approached his career, with restraint and foresight. He didn't build a lifestyle dependent on peak income or constant expansion. He avoided excess, invested carefully, and never allowed success to dictate spending habits. That discipline gave him freedom most actors never experience, the freedom to walk away. By his 70s, it became clear that the so-called financial decline was a myth born from misunderstanding. Russell wasn't surviving between roles, he was sustaining a life built for the long term. What Hollywood mistook for absence was actually stability, and what rumors labeled as decline was, in truth, control. Fatherhood became one of the most quietly influential forces in Kurt Russell's life, yet it was something he almost never discussed publicly. While Hollywood measured success by visibility, Russell measured it by presence. He understood early on that fame doesn't just affect the person in front of the camera, it reshapes the lives of everyone around them. Rather than raise his children inside studios, premieres and press cycles, he made a conscious decision to keep his family grounded and protected. That meant fewer interviews, fewer explanations, and a strict separation between work and home. Rumors grew during this period because people mistook privacy for secrecy. Some assumed he was hiding trouble. Others speculated about tension, distance, or personal conflict. In reality, Russell was doing something rare in Hollywood, prioritizing stability over exposure. He accepted that staying silent would invite speculation, but he believed shielding his family from constant scrutiny was worth the cost. Over time, that choice shaped his reputation as reserved, even distant, yet it also ensured that the most important part of his life remained untouched by the industry. As the years passed, Kurt Russell's on-screen persona began to blur with public perception. The characters he played, confident, unbreakable, often hardened by experience, created an image that many assumed reflected his real personality. Fans expected him to be stoic, dominant, and emotionally closed off. That assumption fed countless rumors about who he was behind the scenes. The reality was far more layered. Russell was thoughtful, deeply observant, and selective with his words. He didn't believe in explaining himself to strangers, especially when those explanations would be reduced to headlines. The danger of playing iconic roles for decades is that audiences stop seeing the actor and start believing the character is real. Russell never attempted to correct that misunderstanding. He understood that once a myth is created, challenging it often strengthens it. By letting people project onto him, he avoided becoming trapped by expectations. The rumor mill thrived on that silence, but so did his freedom. Hollywood thrives on conflict narratives, and Kurt Russell was repeatedly placed at the center of feuds that never truly existed. Over the years, whispers surfaced about tension with directors, disagreements with co-stars, and clashes with studios. Rarely were these claims supported by facts, yet they persisted because Russell refused to publicly deny them. In an industry where public disputes often become marketing tools, his refusal to participate made him an easy target for speculation. What insiders often described as creative differences were reframed as hostility. Russell believed disagreement was part of the artistic process, not a personal attack. He didn't see value in turning professional boundaries into public drama. By staying silent, he allowed exaggerated narratives to form, but he also avoided becoming entangled in manufactured controversy. The irony was that his calm detachment made the rumors more believable to outsiders. In truth, the absence of real scandals in his career made gossip the only story some people could invent. Aging in Hollywood brings a different kind of pressure, and Kurt Russell faced it without compromise. As the industry increasingly demanded reinvention, new images, dramatic transformations, or carefully staged comebacks, he chose consistency instead. He didn't chase relevance through cosmetic changes or sudden rebranding. He allowed himself to age naturally, both on-screen and off. That decision unsettled an industry uncomfortable with time's visibility. Rumors followed once again. Some suggested he had lost interest in acting. Others claimed he was being quietly pushed aside. The truth was far simpler and more defiant. Russell refused to perform youth, relevance, or reinvention for public approval. He believed a career didn't need constant reinvention to remain meaningful, it needed honesty. By his 70s, it became clear that what many saw as resistance was actually self-respect. He wasn't fading away. He was standing still in a world obsessed with reinvention. By the time Kurt Russell reached his later years, he had developed a clear understanding of how rumors functioned, not as truths, but as reflections of other people's expectations. Some stories followed him for so long that they became part of his public identity, even when they had little basis in reality. What most people never realized was that Russell often made a conscious decision to let those rumors live. He understood that correcting every false assumption would turn his life into a permanent press conference. Instead, he chose silence as a filter. Only the stories strong enough to survive without his participation would remain, and those usually revealed more about Hollywood than about him. At 74, Russell has openly acknowledged that not all rumors deserved correction. Some were harmless. Some were inevitable. And some allowed him to move freely while others were distracted by speculation. In an industry that feeds on reaction, his refusal to engage became a form of control. Silence for him was not weakness, it was leverage. When people say Kurt Russell finally confirmed the rumors, they often expect a dramatic confession or a single shocking revelation. What he actually confirmed was far more subtle and far more revealing. He acknowledged that much of what people sensed about him was partially true, but misunderstood. Yes, he resisted Hollywood's rules. Yes, he avoided the traditional celebrity lifestyle. Yes, he was selective, guarded, and fiercely independent. What he clarified was the reason behind those traits. They weren't defenses built from fear or resentment, they were choices rooted in self-awareness. Russell didn't reject Hollywood because he couldn't succeed in it, he rejected parts of it because he didn't want his life consumed by it. At 74, he has spoken plainly about valuing autonomy over applause and longevity over momentum. Hearing those confirmations reframed decades of gossip. The mystery wasn't what he was hiding, it was why people expected him to live by standards he never agreed to in the first place. Reflection takes on a different meaning in later life, and Kurt Russell approaches it without spectacle. He doesn't dramatize regret, nor does he romanticize the past. There are roles he wonders about, paths he could have taken, and moments when he recognizes that silence may have allowed misunderstandings to linger longer than necessary. But those thoughts don't come with resentment. Instead, they come with clarity. Russell measures his life not by awards, headlines, or constant relevance, but by balance. He remained working without being consumed, visible without being exposed, respected without being owned. At 74, the rumors that once surrounded him no longer carry the same power. What remains is a career built deliberately, a personal life protected fiercely, and a legacy defined not by noise, but by choice. The confirmations didn't change who he was, they simply allowed others to finally understand what had been there all along. Kurt Russell's life was never meant to fit the Hollywood template, and that may be the most important truth of all. For decades, rumors followed him because he refused to perform explanations, chase approval, or reshape himself to satisfy expectations he never agreed to. At 74, what he finally confirmed wasn't scandal or confession, it was consistency. Every choice he made, from the roles he accepted to the life he protected, followed the same principle: control your time, guard your privacy, and let the work speak. The rumors only existed because silence makes people uncomfortable. Russell understood that long before most of his peers. His legacy isn't built on noise, controversy, or constant reinvention. It's built on longevity, restraint, and intention.